Matt, getting past the three teams that are ranked currently in the preseason coaches poll and by Pac-12 media as being the contenders for the conference title, do you see anybody lurking in the shadows that could be an issue for those top three?
Yeah, I just recorded a Trojans Wire podcast. We're going to release it next week, not this week, because we still have the Riley files to finish up. But I just did a podcast with the editors of Ducks Wire and Buffalo's Wire. And our three-way conversation unearthed the point that if there is a dangerous lurker in the Pac-12 beneath the top three, which is going to be Utah, USC, and Oregon in some order, like the Utes, Ducks, Trojans, they're clearly the top three teams in the league, the class of the conference. If there's a lurker outside that group, it's Washington State. And it's Washington State because if Cam Ward, the transfer from Incarnate Word, is the real deal, like if he is the real thing, then the Cougars could be, to use a Tim Brando term, the fly in the ointment. That really messes things up, that can be disruptive. And, we're not dealing with a divisional structure. So it's not so much a threat to Oregon, though, of course, Oregon and Washington State will play as geographic neighbors in the Pac-12. But, if Washington State gets more than anyone expects from Cam Ward, that could be a problem, because we've seen Jake Dickert. He did a great job with that defense last year, and he did a great job leading the team after Nick Rolovich got dismissed. So Dickert certainly seems to have an awareness of what to do in terms of defense, in terms of team cohesion. So if Cam Ward can be that final piece to the puzzle and can generate dynamic offensive numbers in Pullman, Washington State could be the lurking threat, which sneaks up on everyone in the Pac-12. Now, some will say UCLA because you have Dorian Thompson-Robinson returning at quarterback. With UCLA, and I don't say this as a USC blogger, like this is my thought, independent of any USC UCLA rivalry emotions. Prove me something on defense, please, Bruins. Show me that you have a legitimate defense. Chip Kelly had to fire Jerry Azzanaro, replaced him with Bill McGovern. Let's see. And we don't know what to expect from that UCLA defense. I mean, obviously the Bruins have a cupcake non-conference schedule. So that also leads me to another concern, is that if you're going to eat all those cupcakes, they're not good for you. At least you can't eat too many. USC is going to eat one cupcake, but not three, the way the Bruins are. So, are those non-conference cupcakes going to adequately prepare UCLA for the Pac-12 schedule? So I'm a UCLA skeptic, not because I'm a USC blogger, but because, really, what has Chip Kelly done to warrant trust at this point? I don't think he's done anything. So let's just see it. Let's see it, Bruins. Let's see you actually meet or exceed the hype. It's possible, but I certainly wouldn't expect it. So I would certainly put Washington State above UCLA in terms of like the team outside the top three that has a chance to make some real noise. Also, you have to include Oregon State in this conversation. And as people know, that week 4 game for USC in Corvallis, it's such a centerpiece game for the Trojans this season. If they get past that game, I think they're going to play for the Pac-12 title, probably win the Pac-12 title. But if the Beavers and their running game going against USC's suspect defensive line, that is a potentially thorny matchup. And of course, if Oregon State does win that game, well, that right there would immediately increase Oregon State's chances of making a dark horse run to the Pac-12 championship game.
Your point about UCLA sounds eerily similar to what I was pointing out on the Michigan podcast just minutes before we started here, in looking at Michigan's schedule, which includes the likes of Hawaii, Colorado State, and UConn as their 3 non-conference games, leading into a trip to Iowa, Kinnick Stadium, and maybe some of those young, inexperienced players may not quite be ready for that setting after the cupcakes that start the season.
Yeah, when you talk about non-conference scheduling, I mean, I can accept 2 cupcakes out of 3, but you really do need, if you think of yourself as a pretty good national program, you need one reasonably decent test. Maybe not top tier test, but you need certainly like a B- level test, an appreciably decent team to really see where you are before you go into the conference wars. If you want to eat 3 cupcakes, all that sugar and carbohydrates is going to weigh you down.
So for me, Matt, when I asked you that question, the two teams lurking in my mind were UCLA, 8-4 last year. Although let's put that into context, beat everyone bad on the schedule, lost everyone with a pulse on their schedule, did have two decent showings against Fresno State and Oregon, but they couldn't close them out at the conclusion. And again, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, very experienced quarterback. Zach Charbonnet coming off a 1,000-yard season. But yeah, the defense has been leaky there with UCLA. And looking at the schedule, coming off the 3 cupcakes, you can add another Pac-12 cupcake as the opener for UCLA. So UCLA with Colorado and Washington to open conference play could be at 5-0, a very flimsy smoke and mirrors 5-0, possibly when they take on Utah in a game that's going to be much anticipated based on the records of the two teams. But that's what we're looking at. And then Oregon State, was my other team that I consider to be a dark horse for a conference championship.
Yeah. And in terms of the rest of the Pac-12, I think what's going to be particularly intriguing is, where does Arizona fit into this mix? And what does Jedd Fisch have in store for year 2? We've seen him recruit at a significant level. He flipped Tetaroya McMillan, a highly sought wide receiver from Oregon. So that took some heavy lifting. Like, that was not an ordinary recruitment. That was an especially strong feat. So Jedd Fisch can recruit, but now can he coach him up on Saturdays? And can Arizona make its way north in the Pac-12 standings? Can it rise above that bottom tier? If Arizona wins 4 games this year, like, that's a really good, encouraging step forward in Tucson. So it'll be interesting to see if Arizona stays at the very bottom or if it can rise several positions. And I don't think Arizona's going to do it. I'm still kind of skeptical about Jedd Fisch in terms of how he is with X's and O's and being able to get the job done on Saturday. But I would certainly allow for the possibility that Arizona can be a lot better than expected. But like Colorado, Cal, definitely not expecting anything from those problems. Kalen DeBoer at Washington, that is somewhat intriguing. But like, if Washington goes 6-6, does that mean the Huskies are on the right track? I don't know, because Jimmy Lake did such a bad job with that program. So I think, with Washington, this year isn't going to prove too much, I don't think, with the program. It's really, what does DeBoer do for years 2 and 3? So I don't think a lot's riding on this year for Washington. But like, those are the 2 teams other than the top 6 of Utah, USC, Oregon, UCLA, Washington State, Oregon State, in no particular order. But those are the top 6. So outside the top 6, Arizona and Washington are the 2 programs I'm particularly looking at.
Talk about a stock market reversal. Jimmy Lake, when he was handed the job, given the blessing of Chris Peterson, seemed to be, he was one of the top assistant coaches in college football. And again, given the blessing of one of the top head coaches in college football, it only took him 4 or 5 games, and basically one just deplorable season, then leading into the 4-8 campaign. To show us otherwise. The 4 games that they played in the COVID year were actually encouraging, as Washington technically won the Pac-12 North Division, but both on the field and off the field, mismanagement and poor leadership out of Jimmy Lake.